सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं। हरिः ओं श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओं। We'll chant the Gita Dhyanam. We have already taken the first 6 verses. We'll chant that. ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधिता भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरवकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तककेशवः। Okay, so we had done till the 6th verse, right? I'm just sharing you the slides which we had taken up. Fine. So we had seen the first verse, of course, is talking about what this text is about as an overview, and how it is conveying the ultimate truth of the Upanishads. It is that which is the Advaita Amrita Varshini. And to that Gita Mata we bow down as we take to that study which will lead us to the destruction of this bhava, this world, this samsara. Okay. Then we also saw that the second verse, Madhusudan Saraswati ji is praising Veda Vyas ji. Perhaps, if Gurudev also says at one point in his commentary that if we were to honor one person in the history of the world towards the sustenance of this beautiful Hindu Sanatana Dharma, who would it be other than Veda Vyas ji? Right? For he has done so much with a visionary zeal, with so much of love for the human beings, for people, for the jivas who have manifested, are living in this world, in this bhava roga, and yet there is hope. There is that glimmer of knowledge which is waiting for us to approach it, right? And for that to be made available to us, Ved Vyasji played the major role. Okay, so then the second verse over there is paying respect to Ved Vyasji. Then further, it goes to Lord Krishna. This whole Bhagavad Gita is revolving around Bhagwan Sri Krishna himself, where he is at once the wish fulfiller. At the same time, he is very consciously checking who gets what and how it leads to their progress, right? So here he says, Paprapanna Parijataya Totra Vetra Ikapane. He also is the disciplinarian teacher. At the same time, he is also that kind, compassionate, graceful teacher, a graceful Bhagwan who is bestowing all the karma phalas to us. And then he says also that he is the one who is holding that Jnana Mudra. And why is he holding that Jnana Mudra? Indicating that it is only when we are in connect with him, that Brahma Vidya or that super consciousness, right, that we will be able to gain liberation out of this Bhavar Sagar, right? So here, Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Geetamruta Duhe Namaha. Why? Because he is the one who is milking that or extracting that essence of the Upanishads and giving it to us in this beautiful dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, right? Right there in the battlefield, he is giving this knowledge to us, right? And then here in the fourth verse, we are seeing the avatar of Bhagwan and his Leela. So when we say that there is avatar, right, there are two aspects to it or two perspectives to it. So one is the Adhibhuta. Adhibhuta as in the one that we see manifest in the world, right? So Bhagwan manifested as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, right? And not in the fourth verse, I meant to say in the next verse, right? Here in the fourth verse, what we are talking of is that milker, or rather the form of Bhagwan as the teacher, as the Jagat Guru. What is he doing? He is not just, he's not just the cowherd boy, but he is the one who is actually, as the Jagat Guru, he is milking the Upanishads, extracting the knowledge of the Upanishads and giving it not just directly to Arjuna, right, but through Arjuna to the many Arjunas that have manifested in this world, including ourselves, right? But then who will get it? When will we actually gain that benefit from it? When we become Sudhihi. Sudhihi, the ones with that good, pure intellect. Pure mind intellect is the one which will be eligible or the right adhikari to gain this knowledge, right? So, Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta. So, this Partha is that calf who can directly gain that milk from the cow, right? Because she also will give it directly with the Vatsalya Bhav, with the greatest of love. The Upanishad Matas are waiting to give the knowledge to us, right? But who will gain it? The one who inquires in the right way, the one who has Shraddha in the Shastra, as well as the Jnanis, the Mahatmas, the Rishis who are giving that knowledge to us, right? The teacher, the Gurus who are giving that knowledge. Now, apart from that one, who is the one who is to get? So, Arjuna will directly get, right? The pure-hearted will definitely get it. But the one who has to strive some more to get it is that Sudhihi, the one who has done a lot of sadhana, is now qualified and waiting to get that Gita Amrita. When will he get it? When he approaches Bhagwan, right? When he bows down or surrenders himself to Bhagwan with the attitude of not just receiving the knowledge but also implementing it in his life to attain that ultimate goal, right? Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamrita Mrutam Mahat. So here we had seen Bhagwan as a teacher and also as that Gopa, or the one who is milking those cows, right? He is the son of Ananda Baba, right? But how did he come into this world? So therefore we see this avtaran of his, right? We agree that he is Bhagwan, and then we say that, oh, isn't Bhagwan the one who has no birth and death? But here he has come down as an avatar and he played various Leelas also, right? He became that Natkhat Kanha. Before that, he came as, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, and that very night he was carried across to where? To Nanda Baba. So here, this itself, that coming of him as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki itself is a Leela. And this avtaran, right, this avatar we will call the Adhibhautika avatar, right, that which manifests in the world, right. And why does it manifest? It manifests for a particular goal. Bhagwan just doesn't come down like that only. There is something to be attained, something to be achieved, and therefore he has come down, right. So here when we are saying this as we said, it is the Adhibhautika avatar, right? And we said that he came to Vasudevji and Devaki Ma in the prison, right, of Mathura, where who was there guarding at all times, making sure that his guards are in place, making sure that at all times his sister is being watched, his own sister, and yet he is keeping that watch, because he knows that there is going to be some kind of mischief, and he already knows that through the Akashvani that this child is going to lead to his own death, right. So here when we say, this is of course part of the Leela, right. And then as we saw, who is that Vasudeva? Vasudeva is that pure consciousness, right. Or rather it is not Vasudeva but that Vasudeva Sutta is that pure consciousness, right. Who came down as what? He came down to in the womb of Devaki. So now this womb over there, or this Devaki Ma, is who? It is our own intellect. It is our own intellect or mind which when it is pure will gain this knowledge, or this knowledge thought we might say, right. And this knowledge thought is said to be what? It is called the Brahmakara Vritti. Okay. That Brahmakara Vritti which will lead to our seeing our own self as that Brahma, or that Brahma, or what is that Brahma? That Brahma is nothing but that Supreme Lord himself, right. And what is this avatar of Bhagwan? This avatar of Bhagwan is that Adhyatmik avatar. Okay. So we said there is two avatars we can think of. One is that which is manifesting outside, and one is that which will manifest within ourselves, right. When we have that pure intellect, when our intellect is ready to receive us, then that knowledge thought in the quietude will come about. Okay? Quietude when? That quietude of meditation, of dhyana is when this thought will manifest. When? Again, when that kamsa has been killed. Who is that kamsa? That kamsa is nothing but our own, this ahamkar whom we have falsely taken as our own self right now. Right? That which we keep saying, I, aham and mama. Me and mine. That has right now become my world. Right? When through right amount of shravana, manana, I will be able to gain clarity in knowledge. When there is purity in my heart and I am able to retain that knowledge, then what will happen? Then this Vasudeva Sutta, which is nothing but that pure consciousness, will dawn in my heart cave. Right? And that is that Brahmakara Vritti. And in its light, what will happen? That Ahankara will go away. Okay? It will be destroyed. Right? So, this is basically the symbolism here. Right? And for that, what should happen? For that beforehand, one, I have to have that Shraddha. Shraddha in whom? In Shastra, in Bhagwan. I should be able to bow down to that Bhagwan in such a way that I know that he is my only support. I know he is that teacher who is going to come to me and give me this knowledge. Right? Only when I am able to do Shravana, only when I am able to understand what is being told to me in that Shravana, what is being spoken by Shastra through the Guru, then what will happen? Then when I do some churning, right? Churning is doing that manana, that reflection, that contemplation. Only then will that knowledge be very clear to me, right? So only when that happens, then further will I be able to go towards dhyana, meditation. For that, what is required beforehand? That I should be able to contain that knowledge. And for that, what is required? I need purity of heart. I need purity of my own mana and buddhi. Okay. For this, what is required? Sadhana. Sadhana with a lot of Shraddha in Bhagwan. That is what is required. Okay. So then in the next verse, as we saw, it's covering this whole Mahabharata, okay, as such. And in also part of it, I will take in the first chapter also, right? And it is important that we understand the nuances of each character. Why? Because then through that only we will see these characters within ourselves. Not that we see in the people around us, but we see in ourselves also, right? And we see the defects that we carry within, and we are able to let go of those negativities within us, which are keeping us from gaining that bliss. That bliss of what? Of that Brahmanyan, that Brahma Vidya, or that pure consciousness, which is me, right? Which is my own pure nature, right? So here in this sixth verse, what is done is the opponents of the Pandavas, they have been described, right? And this is just telling of how difficult it would have been for the Pandavas to face the Kaurava army. Not only were they familiar with the enemies, because they were their enemies in the battlefield, they were the enemies, right? And yet they were the ones who stood tall, who were stalwarts, and they had that capability to fight the Pandavas. So Pandavas were having a lot of stress actually at that moment, looking at this, and yet this river that they had to cross, they were able to do so. How? Because of this Kaivartaka Keshavaha. That is the central idea of this whole river metaphor which is given. That without Krishna at their side, they would not be able to cross this river. This dangerous river with its banks. Its banks are what? The two sides which kind of, give direction to that river. Right? If you see any river, it has two sides, right? And depending on how the makeup, what is the material of the bank, right? The river will also, its nature will also be revealed, right? If it is just plain soft sand, what will happen? The waters will just lap around, right? But if it is, if it is tall sides, right? Deep sides, right? And if they are made of stones, then what is going to happen? That water, even if it is going to hit the bank, it is going to fall back into the river. And that is going to increase the force of the river, right? So if you go, if you see from the source when the river is coming down, normally this is how it will be. If you go to places in Rishikesh, or if you go above that to Uttarkashi and all, you will see how the river, when it is in spate, how tough it is. How it is going straight down with a lot of ups and downs, with a lot of waves in them, right? And it is not just still water. So here, who is the banks of the rivers? It is Bhishma and Drona. Bhishma, as we saw, even in the last class, we saw how he was that, he was that formidable person in that family of that Kuru clan, and he had taken that vrata which by which one is that he also had the boon of choosing his own death, but at the same time he had taken that vrata that he will always be on the side of the throne. So he will fight for that, for whoever is the king who is sitting on that throne, right? So he was very strong in his vow, and that also spoke for his strong self-esteem, right? So it was not that he will just, break at any point. He would see what is going to be the outcome, and based on that he would decide how he would also act. So now both are there. There is Bhishma and there is Drona. So both banks are very strong of this river. And it is said also that, on the first day of the war, just before the war started, Yudhishthira actually goes, he drops his weapons and he has great respect. He is called Dharmaraj, and he does one thing very noble. He goes to the side of the Kauravas, and he has already dropped his weapons, and he has walked up to Bhishma, and he goes and bows down. To whom? To Bhishma. And Bhishma, of course, knowing that he is his own family, his own blood, he gives him the Ashirvad. What Ashirvad does he give? He says, Vijayi Bhava. Okay. So he says Vijayi Bhava. So now what can you say? Now this is your opponent, the one who is commanding your entire opponent army, the entire 11 Akshaunis which are there, and he is saying Vijayi Bhava to the one from the opponent side. So then too, of course, he had that question. Oh grandsire, how can we do this? How can I make this happen? You said Vijayi Bhava, but how can I bring it to its ultimatum? So then he says that at the right time, Krishna will guide you on this, right? So he gives him that positive answer actually, saying that yes, it will happen, but you will have to take guidance from Krishna alone, right? And then, and then he also goes to Dronacharya. And Dronacharya, again, Yudhishthira is his disciple. Yeah, he had studied under him. So again, he also gives him the same Ashirvad. And again, when he has that question on his mind to Yudhishthira, he tells that, yes, if you want a kind of a tip from my side, then I will tell you this. I can't tell about the rest of the armed forces, but I can tell about myself. And what is that secret? If you, in a time of great calamity, if you are going to say something which is very sensitive to me, something which is very close to my heart, if you bring that up to me, then I will not be able to face the situation, right? And this is what he also does further, right? What does he do? He goes and says something about his son, right? And we all know what happened next, right? He does lay down his arms, and that's the end of Dronacharya at that time, right? And then of course Yudhishthira also goes to Kripacharya, etc. All this happens, right? But basically here what we are saying is that these two were the formidable banks of that river. And what is most essential to that river, right? Most essential is the waters of the river. Now, if the waters are not having great depth, then what is going to happen? Then nothing is going. Means it will be easy to wade across, right? But there is that one point where it is very deep, and that depth alone kind of expands to the other sides also, to the sides which reach the banks, both banks, right? So it is essential that these deep waters are there, that there is depth in that water, right? And here giving depth to the water of the Kaurava army is what? Is this Jayadratha, right? And in the last session I spoke of how he was that kind of person who was like that liaison officer between Dronacharya and Bhishma. Whatever they were, however they were directing the armies, and whatever strategy was to be brought about, he was doing it, meeting it out with the utmost alertness, right? And therefore he was someone to watch out for, right? Then we also saw this about Gandhara Nilotpala. Now this Gandhara Nilotpala is who is from Gandhar? Gandhar is, Gandhara Naresh is Shakuni, and Shakuni is, of course, Nilotpala, in some ways people call it that, that decorative lotus, the blue lotus it is said. But here we can't say that he was that blue lotus, okay. He might have seemed, because he was always perched on the Kaurava side. But he brought a lot of damage to the entire family. How? By always instigating the Kauravas against the Pandavas, right? From their childhood onwards, he was always poisoning the mind of Duryodhana about the Pandavas, right? And he also made him poison Bhima. Then further also the Lac Palace, he made him, bring about this Lac Palace so that they could strategize and kill the entire Pandava clan by burning by the entire palace. But thanks to Vidur, who warned them initially itself and built, hidden tunnels under that Lac Palace, then kya hua? Then they were able to escape just as the palace was set on fire, right? Even in fact, that whole game of dice, it was directed by Shakuni itself, right? So this Gandhara Nilotpala is signifying, like a blue stone, which is because of its dark color, right? It is very deceptive. It is not visible. It is below the waters. It is hidden below the waters. Some even say that it is like that, an iceberg, right? Or snowberg, which is there in the frozen river. So you are not able to see it, and therefore if you are a swimmer, you might just go and hit your hand or something to it, right? So he is that deceptive person who might seem like the well-wisher of Duryodhana, but he was the one who was very cunning and had that wickedness and was instigating that wickedness in the Kauravas, right? Then next is Shalya Grahavati Krupena Vahani. Shalya, as we saw last time, so Shalya wanted to, he was the one who was hopeful of being with Yudhishthira on his side. So when they were recruiting the army, what were they doing? They were going from one kingdom to the other and trying to campaign for themselves. Who? Both the Pandavas as well as Kauravas. So here Shalya by himself, he decided that he will go towards, he knew that Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, they were there with Drupad. So he was going to head towards that side, to approach them. And Duryodhan did one little bit of kand at that time. So what he did was, wherever Shalya's army was going, he was providing good food, he was giving good water, etc. So like now also, some politicians, they do that, right? They try to provide some amenities as goodwill, right? So here Duryodhana also had played. So you should see that just as was said, what is there in Mahabharata is in the world. And what is not there in the Mahabharata is not there. So whatever you are seeing right now in the present, it has happened before, is what is to be said, right? So here what is told is that Shalya's, he was very impressed. So why? Because he was thinking, wow, everything is being provided. So Yudhishthir knows my intention, and therefore he is the one who is sending all this. But unfortunately for him, it was Duryodhana who was doing this, right? And finally when he met him, right, he had to get on side of the Kauravas itself, right? And it is as though, he felt little bit of cheating, right? And he thought that, okay, even if I am not, he tried to then go and appease Yudhishthira, right? He went and he said apologetically that, though he wanted to come there, be on the side of Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, but unfortunately Duryodhana caught him initially itself. So then Yudhishthira also told him that, whatever your position is, make sure that you keep touting, keep praising the Pandavas in some way or the other. That is something that you can do, right? And he was given the role of being the charioteer of Karna, right? And whenever at a crucial moment, Karna is going to shoot the arrow and all, what will this fellow do? He will go ahead and he will kind of trigger the anger or irritation in Karna, right? So, but then here one thing to be learnt is that when our mind is integrated with the intellect, okay, when is that intellect good? When that intellect is given good amount of sadhana, right? With good satsang, when that intellect is educated, then what is going to happen? Then it is not, it will be in tune with what is to be done in the right way. What is the Dharma way of doing things, right? And here too, if we see, when Krishna was the charioteer, of Arjuna, at all times, he was telling him the dharmic way of going ahead. He was never telling him to cheat. Though people misinterpret this in many times, they say that, look, what did he do? He cheated and killed Karna. He cheated and killed Dronacharya. No. What was meted out, as is told even earlier, he is that Totra Vetraika Panaya. He is that disciplinarian. Why? Because he is holding that danda of dharma. So what is given to us is not partiality. Not because, I give so much of bhog to Bhagwan, so Bhagwan is going to do everything for me. Here, Bhagwan will do what is rightfully going to give me the outcome for my overall progress, right? Not just in this life, but for lifetimes to come, right? So therefore, here also, Krishna was that good intellect or that good charioteer who was steering Arjuna on the right path, who was steering the Pandavas on the right path. Unlike that faulty charioteer who was Shalya, right? So therefore here Shalya is called that shark. How is that shark? That shark is, it appears dangerous, right? And it is dangerous also because it is unpredictable, right? So that is how. And then he says, Krupena Vahani. Krupacharya is the teacher of the Kauravas, and what was he? He was like the strong current in the waters, right? Because he was the teacher of the Kauravas. He knew what was it that they wanted, and he could give them the right kind of direction to reach that, right? So he was also that strategizer. And then further it is said, Karnena Velakula, the high waters. The high waters, right, or the high waves that come into the waters is Karna. Now Karna is also, we saw in the last class also, he is a formidable warrior, and his skills were, very amazing, and he had also the capacity to overcome the best of opponents, including Arjuna. In fact, he had promised Kunti that he will not harm any of the Pandavas except for Arjuna. And he had been granted this Amogha Ban, one arrow which once it was set onto the victim, it would reach it unfaultily, right? That was given to him by Indra, right? And he had kept it aside for whom? He had kept it aside for targeting Arjuna, right? But again, thanks to Krishna, right? What happened? That arrow finally found Ashwatthama as the mark. So here again, he was formidable, etc. But his support or his goodness was tainted by some negativities within him. And therefore he was not always, he had good qualities, right? He was said to be the most charitable, etc. But when it came to giving the right kind of support, he was supporting something which was not in line with Dharma, right? And therefore he saw defeat in many ways, right? So this is that Karna, right? In fact, even Krishna was at many times during the war, he was praising how Karna was shooting out. Okay. So here it says that next one is Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara. So in this river there are also crocodiles. These crocodiles, what do? They will be stealthily there, Can you see? They will be, kind of camouflaged with the clay and the murk in the waters. they will not be seen. And as though they are cunning, their eyes alone will be there in the waters. And unless one sees very carefully, skeptically, only then we will be able to recognize them, right? So, who are those? And they will immediately, with great speed, attack their victim, right? Attack their target. And who was like this in the war? So, that was Ashwathama and Vikarna, okay? Gora Makara, Duryodhana Vartini. Duryodhana was like that, Avartini, the whirlpool. That whirlpool is such that none can come out of its fate, right? Once you get caught in it, it will just take you in. So, that Duryodhana was like that. He was someone who would not allow anyone to go past him, right? And then he says, Sotirna khalu pandavai rananadi kaivataka keshavaha. So when we see all this entire obstacle course as though, and this huge river, the metaphor is given of that river, it might seem very, very difficult for the Pandavas to actually cross that river of Mahabharata. But because of Krishna alone, because they had done that pratipatti, they had surrendered themselves to the will of the Lord, and therefore to the will of the Lord as in Krishna himself, and therefore they were able to not just fight the Kauravas but cross over that river of Mahabharata, right? So basically here it is saying that one who is in tune with the Lord and is able to grasp that meaning which, that essence which Bhagwan is giving, then definitely we will be also able to cross this river of samsara, right? There might be so many ups and downs that we might face. There might be so many crocodiles or, sharks that we might face in our own, thought chains, right? In our own vasana flows, right? But what can be done? We can just hold on to Bhagwan and have that Shraddha that he will take us across. Okay. And the next one says, salutations to Mahabharata itself. Okay. So he says, Parasharya vachas saroja mamalam Gitartha gandhodkatam Nana kyanaka kesaram harikatha Sambodhana bodhitam Loke sajjana षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे. So, salutations to Mahabharata, right? What is this Mahabharata? It is that beautiful poetry which is woven by Parasharya. Parasharya is who? Parasharya is the son of Parashara. Who is that? That is Vedavyasji, right? So, this beautiful poetry, this beautiful prose and poetry of this Mahabharata is brought together by whom? By Vedavyasji. And what is that beautiful song which is woven in that? In so many stories, in so many akhyas, etc. Right? In the midst of that, there is this 700 verses which are coming in as beautiful poetry. Okay? That is the Bhagavad Gita. Right? So this Bhagavad Gita, right, is like that lotus. So it is that Saroja Mamalam. Saroja, it is that lotus which is coming out of the murk of all these characters of samsara which are there. Some are good, some are bad, some have desires which are unending, some have that great dedication and devotion to the Lord, right? And therefore, in in that whole Mahabharata, there is also these beautiful stories of Lord Krishna himself which are woven in. Harikathas. Nana Kyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam. Right? So there is these beautiful stories of the Lord also which come in, which add another kind of rasa only to this beautiful katha. And here one more thing we have to see is that when we are saying, how is this lotus normally? That lotus is as though untouched by the murky waters around it. And not just is it beautiful, but it also has its own beautiful fragrance, right? And that fragrance, it is not limited to itself. By its presence in that pond, that fragrance as though flavors the entire pond also, right? So to here, the presence of that Bhagavad Gita, what is it doing? It is bringing that kind of a fragrance to this Mahabharata itself, right? So here, what he is saying is that there are different elements to this Mahabharata. There are different characters, different stories, there are the nuances of those, and there is much to learn from each of this. And for that, there are many commentaries which people have written, right? Nana Kyanaka Kesaram, there are people who have studied it and then written commentaries on them, so that we can also benefit from those, right? And then, that is about that Mahabharata, right? But then there are those, among these writers, among these connoisseurs of that beautiful fragrance of the Bhagavad Gita are these rishis or these jnanis. Who are they? They are the ones who want only that beautiful fragrance of this lotus. So what do they do? Like the bees, the bees are what? They are the Shatpadai. The bees are with 6 legs, right? So what is the role of these bees in the nature? They are these pollination agents. So wherever there is fragrance, they will directly go there, and they will just sit around, right? And they will gather that honey, or they will gather that beautiful the seeds which are there, and then spread them around, right? So here also there are those jnanis who are those connoisseurs of this knowledge, right, of this Bhagavad Gita. What do? They go directly to that lotus only. They don't go to anything else in that pond. And they just want to revel in that fragrance of this blooming lotus of the Bhagavad Gita. Loke sajjana shatpadar aharaha pepiyamanam muda. Again and again they are going only for that, right? And then what happened? And therefore last it is said, Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvamsina Shreyase. And this knowledge which will come, right, from this Bhagavad Gita only, what will it do? One is that it will get rid of this Mala of Kali. Mala of Kali, this Kali Yuga that we are in, where we sometimes, even most times, in fact not just sometimes, we even forget the existence of Bhagwan, that there is a creator, or that there is someone we have forgotten in the enjoyment of the worldly pleasures, and he is the one who is always still available for us, right? And when do we actually get rid of this impurity which is keeping us from this Bhagwan? When we are able to go to this Gita Amrita. So when will that happen? When we when we go towards making a choice of Shreya against prayer, right? When we start going towards that which is that goodness alone, right? When will that happen? When we take to satsanga, right? And we put in efforts to have more and more sadhana, so that there is more and more purity, which will not only tune us in with that knowledge, but also we will be able to retain that knowledge with us, right? So here it is said in this beautiful verse that we salute that Mahabharata, right, which is composed by whom? It is composed by Ved Vyasji, and in this Mahabharata only is contained this Bhagavad Gita, who is going to take us away from this Kalimala. It seems like this Kalimala is endless, right? Because we are only start of it. We are only in 5,000 years. There are many years more to go, right, for the Kali to end. So we need not wait for Kali to end. We have to just tune into Bhagwan and propitiate to him, right? So the next verse further says, salutations to that Bhagwan, or the Bhagwan's grace itself, the Lord Krishna, or that Jagat Guru, and his grace, which is going to, what is it is going to do? It is going to empower us in such a way that Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat krupatamaham vande paramananda madhavam. So this Paramananda Madhavam. So who is Madhava? Madhava is, of course, he is that, not just that he is blue boy of Vrindavan, is a avatar of that Madhava. But Madhava is basically the father, the husband of goddess Lakshmi, right? And how is this Madhava? He is very gentle, he is very kind, and this is seen through that grace which he has, right? He has that grace which, at times will grant certain wishes, say tathastu, and at times will also make sure that whoever was granted that wish is also given the right kind of punishment, so that he remembers finally Bhagwan only and cries out, so that Bhagwan releases him from that pain, okay, or releases him from the ill effect of that wish or that desire which was granted, right? And that is seen in so many ways, right? We'll see it even in the form of someone like Hiranyakashipu, right? Or in the form of someone like Ravana, right? Even though they were given the punishment, they were destroyed, but they were destroyed at the hands of Bhagwan, so they received mukti at the hands of Bhagwan, right? So here also, when it is said, Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim, right? So what is happening here? That this slayer of Madhu, he is, Madhava is also said because, he is the one who killed Madhu. Madhu was that demon, right? So here, the slayer of Madhu, he is the one who gives us the ability to give up our limitations. So here limitations is told in terms of mukam. So one who is dumb, one who is not able to speak, is given the power to scale up to eloquence in speech, right? And the one who is pangum, is lame, is not able to walk, that person is able to scale mountains, okay? So when that is said, does it mean that it is only the power of speech? No, here what he is actually intending is that it is symbolic of making us or rather empowering us in such a way that we are dropping our limitations in order to do something higher, right? So one who was only limited to thinking of limitations of life, whatever I do for myself. Whatever I seek, it is for my own selfish gains. So this world of me and mine, when we start questioning it at some point, then what happens? Then Bhagwan gives us that subuddhi to do what? To go internal, right? To be able to churn on enquiries into our own self and drop the limitations. So when will that happen? So when, say suppose we try and understand this pangum or this lameness. When does it come about? When, one of the limbs has, you have two limbs, two legs, one of them has some kind of defect, right? And therefore, the two are not aligned. So will I be able to walk? I might not be able to walk right? Forget about climbing mountains. So, the journey will become difficult for me, correct? But what Bhagwan does is that with increase in my own self-effort, when I am trying to put in some discipline, when I am trying to have satsanga, when I am trying to bring good thoughts to myself, then what is happening? When I am reaching out to Bhagwan, what is Bhagwan going to do? He is going to give me Guru and Shastra. And with that, align my Buddhi and Mana. So when the two are integrated, when they are in one line, then definitely there is going to be a smoother journey ahead. Of course, there is tough times, there is ups and downs, but my vigor and stamina to reach the goal, to reach the heights of self-evolution will never wane. When I have propitiated Bhagwan, when I have done that pratipatti to Bhagwan, when I have Shraddha, not just in myself but also Shastra and Guru and Bhagwan, right? This is important, right? I need to have Shraddha in myself also. So that is also important, right? So what do? We just bow down to Bhagwan and his Krupa will do the rest, right? His Krupa will see to us that Yat Krupa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. By his grace only, I will get that supreme bliss. So there is this wonderful metaphor which is given by Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, where he says that, the winds are there at all times, right? On the river, when you are in the boat, the winds are there at all times. But when will that boat go ahead in the right kind of momentum? When I unfurl the sails. And the boatman, he unfurls the sails and tries to align it in direction of the wind, then there will be further movement, right? So what do I have to do? I have to make myself available for Bhagwan and point myself directly towards him, right? So that right direction, right? Keeping my destiny in mind, that is more important. Having Shraddha in Bhagwan, that is more important. Bhagwan's Krupa is there at all times. Only we have to be connected to it and we will see it in action, right? So that was the thing about it, that who will transform? Of course, the one who puts in self-effort and knows that Bhagwan will do the rest, right? Give your best and leave the rest, right? And then the last verse there is Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutah Stunvanti Divyai Stavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopanisadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam na vidusura suragana devaya tasmai namaha devaya tasmai namaha. So here we are offering our salutations to that Ishvara himself. That Ishvara, who is that Ishvara? He is that same Lord only, who comes as that Adi Bhautika avatar. When Dharma has to stand up, when Dharma is on decline, what is required? Right direction is required. So Bhagwan will come. He will give us the impression that we are doing the work, right? But actually it is his hand which is at play. At the same time, that Bhagwan, he will manifest as that awareness within. When and in whom? He is already there. It is not that he has to manifest separately, but in this ignorant mind, which is looking for happiness, bliss everywhere outside, he will manifest when we are attuned to him, when we are out of purity seeking him, such that we are not going to give up, such that we are going to make sure that we have that, that complete resolve, or that resolve with conviction that we will reach that Bhagwan. We will not rest till we find him in our own hardcore, right? So this same Bhagwan, he is also that Ishvara, that Ishvara Shakti, which is manifest everywhere as that totality. And it is him only who Brahma, Varuna, Indra, Marutaha, all these devas, what are they doing? They are also bowing down to him. They are praising him. They are singing his glories, right? And not just them, the eternal Vedas, which are also the life breath of Bhagwan only, right? The Vedas, where have they manifested from? They have manifested from this Ishvara alone, right? So this Vedai Sangapada Kramopanishadai Gayantiyam Samagaha. So these Vedas also are singing the glories of the same Ishvara only, the same Bhagwan only, right? Where in the Upanishads you might see, right? Or you might see how the ones who are knowledgeable in the Vedas, like those who are intelligent or who have mastered the Samaveda. Samaveda is which is much more poetic and melodious, right? So these Samagas, right? Those who have mastered the Samaveda, what are they doing? They are singing the praise of this very Ishvara in that Samaveda, right? Then not just that, the one who is that yogi, what has he done? He has gone forward in his devotion and become one with that Bhagwan. Become the same minded with Bhagwan. How? Through Dhyana, through meditation. Dhyana avastita tadgadena manasa pashyanti yam yogino. So the yogis see that Lord as their own self, right? When they are able to, through Dhyana, through meditation, reach him. Yasyantam na vidusura suragana devaya tasmai namaha. The one who has no beginning and the end, right? So who is that? It is that Ishvara only, right? And these yogis also become that, who have no end, right? When they get that mukti, where? Here only, in this lifetime only, where they are living. And further when they become one with that totality through Videha Mukti, right? And who is praising them? The Suras and the Asuras, right? The Devas and the Asuras, they are also praising all of them, right? They are praising not just the Ishvara but also that those yogis who have come to see no difference between Bhagwan and themselves, right? So we also bow down to that Bhagwan, we bow down to that those yogis who have already become one with that Bhagwan through the grace of this Bhagavad Gita, right? And may we study it over and over again and have that grace of this Gita Maya as well as Bhagwan Shri Krishna, so that we never come back again, we never see our end, we see that there is no end, there is only that oneness, there is that Advaita. Okay, fine. So we'll stop here and then start with the chapter 1 in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.